Hello everyone, welcome back to a new Dreamcatchers video. My name is Charlie, and today we have an interview from Anton Arkhipov. So, Anton here is from the Allen Institute and is an expert in computational neuroscience. He got his PhD in physics from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I hope you guys enjoy the sharing that he has for us today.
Hi everyone. So my name is Anton Arkhipov, and I'm an group leader at the Allen Institute, an organization dedicated to biological research in Seattle, state of Washington, United States. So let me share with you some of my experiences and trajectories so far. And so I'm originally from Russia. Was born in Soviet Union, the country that doesn't exist anymore. So in my childhood, like everyone, I went to school. I studied. I liked certain subjects. Actually, most of all, I liked history and geography and biology. I really enjoyed that. And all my sort of childhood life, I thought that I would become a historian or maybe a biologist. But I didn't have a very good teacher of those subjects. Instead, towards the high school, we got a teacher who was extremely good, but she was a teacher of physics. And so that's maybe the first lesson I want to share with you, which is your associations and the importance of being flexible. Because I liked certain subjects, I was curious about them, like history, but I didn't have anyone who could teach me well and prepare me to go to a good university to study those subjects. Instead, I got this teacher who was really good at preparing us for the best universities in math and physics, even though those were not my first choices. However, after spending some time with her, I realized that I liked that quite a bit, and I ended up going to a university in Moscow called Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, which was really good. So I studied physics there. I spent there 6 years doing my bachelor's and master's. And back then I started doing research as part of those studies, research in quantum mechanics, computation, simulation of quantum mechanical systems. So now this is another thing maybe that young people should be thinking about, which is what it is that you want to do with your life, right? This is always an important question. And it's important to start asking that question early. For some people, it comes really early. For me, it didn't come until I was maybe like, I don't know, 17 or 18. But when it did come, I started thinking about it quite seriously. And first, I felt like, some kind of physics related work would be really satisfying for me. But then after trying that for a few years, I started having some additional thoughts. I thought, for example, that maybe working on these sort of things that are, not living, very microscopic and sort of cold, not something you encounter in real life all the time. Various materials and like atoms that are forming crystalline cells and so on. It just wasn't for me. I felt like I want something that has to do more with humans, with our bodies and who we are, and that's how I started gravitating towards biology. And then I thought long and hard about it, and I thought that it would be really cool to study brains because ultimately that's what makes us human. That's where all our memories and thoughts and feelings originate, and it's a very complex system that we don't fully understand. So wouldn't it be great to work in that area? However, I didn't have credentials to do, for example, graduate research or graduate school in biology. but I had a lot of background in physics. So I applied to physics programs for graduate schools. I ended up going to a pretty good school, especially in physics and engineering. It's University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in United States. And I spent the next 5 years there working towards my PhD. However, the cool thing is that in modern science, a lot of fields are intertwined. And even though I came in as a graduate student in physics, I ended up working in biology, in biophysics, in molecular simulations of various proteins and other molecules that do some different jobs in cells. I actually wanted to do brain science, as I told you, and first I came to a professor who was very good. He was very successful, and I saw on his website that he used to do theoretical neuroscience as well as molecular biology simulations. But when I came to him, he said, well, sorry, we had to stop one of those subjects because we couldn't get enough money to support both. So the funding agencies told me that you have to choose one, and I chose the molecular science. So being there, I still wanted to do neuroscience, but I realized that in that department, there wasn't anyone who was doing something really close to neuroscience. And that professor was really good in the molecular simulations. And so I sticked with him and decided to stay. So you might think that maybe that was a bit of a detour, but on the other hand, it did send me on a really successful trajectory because it was a successful lab. I learned a lot. I got good sort of credentials after working with this professor and a lot of scientific papers. I actually also met my wife there. And so all in all, it was a really positive experience. And then after receiving my PhD, interesting story, another detour. So I still wanted to do neuroscience. I applied for what is called postdoc. So in science, you would finish your PhD, then maybe you do several years of postdoc, so-called postdoctoral studies. And then after that, maybe you can apply for faculty positions like a professor positions. So I applied for postdoc positions and I went to a few places. And for all of them, I applied for neuroscience position, except one. Because at that time, a new private research lab in New York City developed a supercomputer which could do molecular simulations about 100 to 1,000 times faster than what was previously possible. So, and that allowed us to get to the timescales that were previously completely inaccessible, and start seeing on a computer as a part of simulation how the different proteins do their jobs, again at a time scale that were previously we just couldn't even dream of. So I applied to that place as well, and to all other places in neuroscience. I got some good offers for neuroscience. I got actually an offer from one professor in a very, very good university, Caltech, California Institute of Technology. If you haven't heard of it, it's one of the best universities in the world, like sort of MIT or Harvard. And but I declined that offer because I got an offer from that other research lab that I mentioned that was doing molecular science and simulations. Why, despite my dream in neuroscience? Well, the answer is that I was nobody in neuroscience, and I felt like it will take me some time to develop a good career there. Whereas with this new development in this new research lab, I had an opportunity to hit ground running, to do something with the skills that I had and immediately, be productive and useful. I mean, in principle, I think it could go either way. Maybe if I went to neuroscience back then, it would have been easier a little bit later, but that's the decision I made. And again, I don't regret it. That was a good decision. I spent 3.5 years in New York City in this private research lab called DE Shaw Research. And it was great. We did some interesting scientific discoveries using this simulation approach, and in the end published some very, very well received papers, and that helped me to propel my career further. Furthermore, what happened after that, I started looking for professor or group leader positions. And at the same time, that professor from Caltech, who gave me an offer for postdoc before, was starting a new expansion at the Allen Institute. So he went from California to Seattle to Washington to become a chief scientist of this new enterprise, the Allen Institute, sort of private non-profit research institution. And they were hiring people, including people doing computational work. He knew me. We kept in touch over the years. And so I applied, and well, I want to believe that I was taken there not just because I knew that person, but I think they realized that I had some really useful skills in computation and in physics and so on. Even the neuroscience was somewhat new to me. I received an offer and I came there. And so finally, I came and started doing neuroscience in this research institution. So this has been my trajectory. It's a little convoluted, but I think it illustrates well, first how the modern science works, that there's a lot of interpenetration of different fields. You know, a lot of physicists come to work in biology and neuroscience and so on. Then, you know, computation is valuable, math is valuable, machine learning is valuable. So when you have these skills in certain field, they generally translate pretty well to other fields. And it's been great for me. I've been here at the Allen Institute for the last 10 years. I would say had pretty successful career so far, had promotions, my group expanded, we published some really good papers, made progress, you know, in science, delivering some really cool results. So just to give you an idea, what we are doing here is modeling, computational modeling of brain or of brain circuits. So we work with the colleagues here at the Institute who are obtaining a lot of very cool experimental data about the composition of the brain, what cells it consists of, how the cells connect to each other, and what they do in a living organism, with the mouse being our model organism of choice. And what we do in my team is to take this data and integrate them into computational models, sort of a very detailed, biologically realistic computational models with a lot of complexity there, which we can then simulate to try to predict or learn something about the mechanisms that operate in the brain, how all these different cells talk to each other, how they organize themselves to create various functions of the brain, various types of activity that underlie our perception, learning, memory, and so on. So of course, it's a very complex task. But we are making progress, and it's been very, very exciting. Plus, we share everything with the community, make all our data and models publicly available, which is sort of a novel way of doing this, relatively speaking, in this field. And it's been catching up, and a lot of other people are doing that as well. So, if you ask me what I think about opportunities in this field, I will tell you that if you're interested in science or engineering, that's definitely an amazing field to be in, especially considering artificial intelligence, neuroscience, biology more generally, and physics, right? It's the intersection between those fields, I think, has the amazing potential, computation, biology, and physics. There's just amazing things happening in the last 10 or even a few years in artificial intelligence, in neuroscience, a lot of very exciting new techniques. We are learning so much about the details of how the brain works that we had no idea about before. And I think it very well might have very important consequences for the society in the future, because it may translate to better medicine, to better tools for, again, artificial intelligence and machine learning and everything. And so I think it's a very exciting area. Of course, there are many other exciting areas, and if you are not into engineering or something else, you should follow your passion. So yeah, that has been my trajectory. So I was asked to comment on a few things that maybe I learned along the way, and so I want to share a few of them with you. So number one, I think, is the importance of associations. No matter how smart you are, no matter how hardworking you are in everything, and especially in modern life and, you know, in modern jobs and in modern science, you are probably not going to do it alone. You will be doing it with someone. and keeping in touch with people, having good relationship with people, cultivating this relationship is extremely, extremely important. For me, it was absolutely necessary. I told you about the teacher who sent me on the trajectory into something that I maybe didn't like originally, but in the end become a passion of my life. Or keeping in touch with this professor who used to be in Caltech, but then moved to the Allen Institute. And because of that, because I kept in touch with him, even though I didn't come to work with him, I was trying to be nice to him. He was trying to be nice to me. We kept in touch. We wished each other New Year and things like that. We met a couple of times in the intervening years. And in the end, I learned from him about this amazing opportunity, right? Which I could then at least try applying to. It could have not worked out, but it worked out. So that is extremely important. Second, motivation. So I think a lot of people go through life without motivation, and I just cannot emphasize enough how important it is to visualize what you want, visualize the life you want, think about what it is you want, what would make you satisfied, right? Not necessarily happy. Happiness is a short-term thing. It's like something happens, makes you happy, you are happy for a couple hours, then it goes away, typically maybe a day. You think about what gives you long-term satisfaction, what you want to learn, what you want to achieve, how do you want to live with other people and with yourself, what will give you feeling of bliss and blessing for many years to come. For some people, it's science. For some people, it's business. For some people, it's maybe teaching. For some people, it's helping society. For some people, it's being good with their family and supporting everyone in their family. It's very important to think about that. And then, once you understand what makes you run, then you can run. Then you can go after your dreams. Another thing I'll mention is that it's important to learn all the time. So I'm from Russia originally. We have the saying, you live a century and you learn a century, right? Just keep learning all the time, even though you might feel like, once you're 20 or 30 years old, you learned everything, you are like fully formed adult and you don't need to change anymore. That's not true. We all always have something new to learn, become better, become more efficient and so on, learn new skills. And for me, that was true. I switched from physics to biology to neuroscience, continue learning new things every day. And so I think it's very important, especially in the modern world. Another thing that I found, and that's only maybe in the last 5 years or so I realized it, is that it's very important to not take yourself too seriously and not to complain too much. There will be a lot of things in your studies and in your work that makes you feel bad, and maybe you want to pity yourself, maybe it's too hard or something. But look, in modern life, in most cases, we have it much easier than what people had before. I often think about my grandparents who, were born around the time of the revolution in Russia and went through Stalin's time and through the World War II and all kinds of things like that. And just thinking about any hardship that we usually have is just a totally different story. I'm not saying that people do not have a very difficult situation these days. Sometimes they do, and there is still war and complications in modern life, and of course we have things like global warming and who knows what else. But just think, try to think about perspective, and don't worry too much about things. Most of the things we worry about are just not worth it. Finally, when I was a graduate student, I worked at this institution called Beckman Institute. It was founded by Arnold Beckman, who studied at the University of Illinois, became a very good engineer, started a very successful scientific devices company, worked in Caltech, near Caltech, and he spent a lot of money supporting science and built this beautiful institute at the University of Illinois where I worked. He lived for more than 100 years and played piano and was agile and sportive and so on. So really a very nice guy. So one of the sayings from him was moderation in everything, including moderation itself. And I just found it to be so true, especially when you have to study for exams and so on. Moderation in everything, including moderation itself, which means you want to be moderate, you don't want to push yourself too hard and so on, but sometimes you need to, and that's okay, right? You can have a little bit of moderation in moderation itself. Well, so I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for listening, and have a great rest of your day.